Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Education 101.
101.
101, because it's the basic. It's like the entry. It's like the entry level, you know?
Yeah. Coming out of the closet.
Coming out. It's all the basics. It's so fun. It's also, like, terrifying. You know, you go to college and you're like, I don't know what's going on. That's coming out also. So.
Okay.
This episode, we obviously have a guest. This is my very, very, very good friend, Kadee.
Best
friend.
We will talk about that.
You're still in my phone as Kadee, my best girl, with the thumbs up emoji. The cool one.
Mine has a surfer emoji with your name because you're just badass.
Surfing.
Yes.
Today's episode is kind of just a different perspective, really, which I'm actually really excited about because I feel like we've never really we've talked about me being gay.
Yeah.
And you've met a number of the girls that I've dated, but like I've never.
Say majority of them.
Yeah, but like I've never. Half. I haven't dated many girls, so haven't dated much. But you've met multiple.
Yes.
Where do we even start? I don't know. I'm really excited about this. But
I'm stoked.
We'll back up, I guess, for context. So first of all, one of the important things I think to know is that we're both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I think that's very important to note. I think, because we grew up the same, we have a lot of the same values, the same background.
Mm-hmm.
I think our parents probably raised us very similarly in the sense of the church and morals, beliefs, all those things.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing Utah is like Mormon kingdom, so everybody kind of comes from the same.
And not only that, but we're in
culture.
Happy Valley,
right,
where we're kind of in a bubble.
Oh, absolutely.
Majority of the people, I would say, are members of the church.
Yep. I was having a conversation. I was at a baby shower yesterday, and a couple of my cousins from California, who are now like transplants to Utah, have like started their families here. We were talking about like our experiences in like high school, and me and my sister-in-law, Kadee, we're talking about how like we didn't know anything about anything when we were growing up. And one of my cousins was like, there wasn't anything that my friends had not done in high school, like growing up, because they're from California, and people, the religion wasn't like a big deal. And so anyway, it's certainly a bubble of something, innocence, being naive, maybe.
Austin uses the word prude. Austin's my husband.
Prude. We love Austin.
Yes, we do.
So much. He should be on a podcast.
I don't know about that.
I have to like bleep out all the expletives because this is wholesome gay, but it's fine.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So Kait and I met in a singles ward. I guess kind of. I knew of Kait in high school because she did her Kicks by Kait, she has talked about. I have some shoes. We're at my parents' house. I have some shoes in the basement that Kait did.
Perry the Platypus.
Yes, I love Perry the Platypus.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so that's how I knew of Kait originally. And then we met in singles ward. We were both pretty fresh off our missions.
Pretty fresh.
I went to Texas. I got home. And
what month did you get home in 2015?
April
of 2015, and I got home in February of 2015.
Okay, so really close.
So we were like, super close there on the mish, which is a whole experience in and of itself. But after the mission, you go to the singles ward, which I think I touched on in one of my episodes. It's a congregation full of single people. Yes. And the idea is to meet somebody and get married and not be single anymore.
Yes, and Kait was the best because she was in charge of all of the activities for the singles ward. And we planned some fun activities. She called me to help her plan activities.
I remember I don't know if we were playing like kickball. It was a kickball activity where I was like, would you like to be on the activities committee?
And I was gung-ho because my first Sunday back, Austin actually got called to activities committee as one of his callings. And I looked at my dad and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. I think it was like 1 or 2 days later, Kait was like, hey, come join me.
Let's plan some activities for all the youths, all the young people. That was such a fun group, though. We had so many awesome people.
We did.
It's
fun having people of the same religion, same kind of belief system. And even then, we invited a lot of other people, too.
Oh, yeah. It was a good group.
Yeah.
As far as people go. There was no like, cliques or... Everybody just got along.
Very much so.
Everybody loved hanging out and doing all the fun things. The single ward, it worked for you.
It did. That's where I met Austin, and Kait was our go-between.
I was.
Because she was pretty much best friends with both of us. I was going to college. Austin, when I first met him, put me in the friend zone.
Real quick. Rude.
And I was in college. I was trying to date, and he changed his mind. He wanted to date me. And I was like, negatory.
Like,
so he would go to Kait to say...
What was going on?
What the heck? Why won't she date me? And I was like, well, I kind of want to date around, but I do like him. Eventually, it got to the point where he was going to move, and she was like, if you don't tell him you like him, I'm going to tell him you like him.
I just remember a sushi dinner that Austin and I went to that we were talking about relationships. And was it going to work? What's the vibe? What's the feeling? I was totally a bro. I was such a bro.
You were. But also, like, we did a lot together. So
that's true.
I mean,
we had a lot of fun.
You were just the most chill person, so you hung out with anybody and everybody.
That's true. I just remember, I love it when that Jeep picture pops up when we were in Sean's Jeep. That's like one of my favorite pictures of us of all time. That one and the one in the front of the flag.
Oh, heck yes.
A patriotic post.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So another one of our activities we went on a tour of the Payson Temple.
Yeah.
Do you remember that night?
I do remember that.
Do you remember what you said to me that night?
No, I don't.
You said, hey, Kadee, you're my best friend. Something like that. Or are we best friends? Like, is this how it's going to be? So that's why I say Kait is my best friend, because she was like,
it's like, this is it.
Best friends.
This is me determining the relationship. This is it. I'm putting a label on it. I hate labels, but there's a label here.
And at this point, you're more family, but
that's true.
You were also...
Well, that's the other thing, too, is I don't know at what point I started hanging out with the whole clan.
Well, so my dad was in the singles ward as a leader, a leadership position. And so Kait had mentioned that she was interested in getting into motorcycles. Mm-hmm. And my dad was very much into motorcycles.
Very much into motorcycles.
Very supportive versus maybe your family.
My
not
family
so
was
much.
Not at all. My dad did not want me to have a motorcycle because the only women he knew that rode motorcycles were gay, which is ironic because I was not at the time, or at least I was not sure about that at the time.
Right.
And anyway, but then
And so you started hanging out. Yeah. My dad is into motorcycles. My brothers are into motorcycles. We had like multiple motorcycles around, so you guys would go on rides.
He went with me to with my first bike, that little silver Suzuki that I bought. He went with me to like ride it. He rode it home when I went to buy my first motorcycle, and then you guys were also. I mean, I was a block away on that.
You were on the corner,
accident.
Not even a full block.
That happened. My first ever motorcycle accident. Hopefully, it's the only one ever. Yes. But yeah, I was literally like, I was going to. Me and Jess were gonna go ride bikes at Tim Harley.
Oh, I
That's what we were doing that day. I was going to your house.
It was the day after my birthday. Austin and I were at my parents' just stopping by really quick after we went to breakfast. Mm-hmm. We were in the driveway.
Yep.
And my dad heard a crash. He walked out to the street and his face just went completely pale. And he was like, that was Kait. She just got in a car, like a wreck.
Yep.
So, of course, we ran down and called the ambulance, and fortunately you were okay.
Yeah, I was fine. I was totally. a little bruised up, a little shaken. It took me a minute to get back on a bike, but yes. I mean, it was your dad's motorcycle. The next time I rode a bike was his Victory motorcycle. So
that's how you started hanging around. Like you were like one of the guys.
I was one of the boys. One of the boys.
And I still question if my dad likes you more than he likes me sometimes. He loves Kait.
I'm the long lost son.
My dad is known as Mr. Beard.
Mr. Beard. I've always called him Mr. Beard.
He's got a
very large, bushy beard. It's always been a great beard. No hair on top, but
I think he needs to be on the podcast one of these days.
I think he'd be great. I think he would really enjoy it. We'll ask him.
He's got such a deep perspective of so many things. Any really topic he would.
It's fascinating. Really I remember like motorcycle rides. Like one time we went on this all day ride where we started in Heber and then we went and Jess was with us for the first half and then he left. But we it was like a 8 or 10 hours.
Yeah, you started riding at breakfast. You ended up getting lunch too somewhere.
We just rode around. I think so.
Down in Mount Pleasant.
We were everywhere. It was so cool. And we had so many, I can't even, half the conversations I feel like we just have and they all get me thinking and then I don't remember, like, I couldn't tell you specifically like the things that we talked about, but there were so many conversations that we had that I was just like, wow, this is just lots of wisdom from Mr. Beard.
Mr. Beard has so much wisdom.
That's kind of the background story. I guess that's how we got to where we are.
Very much so.
Yeah. But there was this whole moment, and here's the thing, I was thinking about this, and I've been trying to, like, think about with all of my friends, like, my close friends, I've been trying to pinpoint when it was that they found out, and I honestly, the only thing that comes to mind with you, I don't know if I ever sat down and said, I don't remember what happened.
You don't remember?
No, okay, I don't, with anybody. My friend Chelsea, with you, with my friend Savannah, who also I was just like super close. Like I don't remember.
We were at Beauty and the Beast
at the park
at the
Sarah.
Show.
Yeah, okay, that's the thing that came to mind.
Your current girlfriend,
Kenna, who actually she messaged me and she was like, "You can use my name on the podcast." So we're good there.
So Kenna came. So what happened is I invited you to come to the play. It was me and my sister-in-law Natalie. Mm-hmm. And you were like, well, do you mind if I bring my roommate? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. Like, we have plenty of tickets. Go ahead, whatever. Oh and once you got there, I was like, I can't get a feel for who Kenna is. I was not sure. And so I think at that point, I was like, I questioned who she was enough to where I asked you about your dating life. I wasn't specific about genders. I didn't ask if you had a boyfriend. I just said, so are you dating?
Did you suspect?
I did.
You did suspect.
But only after you got there.
Interesting.
With Kenna.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
And maybe it was the vibe Kenna was giving me. Right. Because I never even assumed before that night.
Because we were just roommates.
And I don't think you'd ever told me about her. I don't think you'd ever told me about Kenna. Other than she was a coworker and a roommate. So I asked you about your dating life. Mm-hmm. And you said, well, Kenna's not just my roommate. And that was kind of, I was a little bit stunned. But also I had already assumed. So it wasn't necessarily a shock either.
Yeah.
And then I think I asked you a couple questions like, okay, so how long have you been dating? And who all knows? Because I know how your family is. I was nervous for you to tell your family. I was nervous to tell my family.
That's so interesting to me.
Just not because I thought my family would ever close the door to you or turn their back on you, but I wasn't sure how they would react.
Right.
And I think I knew my parents would probably take it the hardest out of everybody.
Yeah.
Not because they would be disappointed either. Just because I wasn't sure. Like, no one in our family had ever experienced anyone being gay.
Right. Totally new thing.
Totally new. And you were pretty much family at that point. Like, you were around all the time. And so, yeah.
That's so crazy.
And I also want to make a note. At no point did I ever think about how hard it must have been for you to tell even me.
Yeah.
Or your family, but I've never thought about
I don't remember the order of things. I don't know if my family knew.
I think they knew before you told me. They knew at that point,
and then we went to Beauty and the Beast.
But I think it was pretty close together, too.
Yeah. I don't think it had to have been, because I don't think I would have told you if I hadn't told my family yet.
I think you're probably
because
right.
I think I was keeping everything like so under wraps. That like I was so.
When you respect your parents so much, I don't think you would tell anyone else out of respect
before telling
for them.
Yeah, I mean there were only besides Kenna, there was only one other person I could think about that knew what was going on. Yeah, that's so crazy. It feels like it was forever ago.
It was in 2019. Jeez. Summer of 2019
in Orem at the outdoor theater. Beauty and the Beast. So gay.
So that night when we left, we got in the car, and I'm pretty sure I was in the back seat, so I couldn't like see my mom's face. And I just said, "Mom, I have something to tell you." I'm sure her heart sunk because that's how she is.
She was like, "Oh no."
And so I said, "Well, that wasn't just Kate's roommate. That was her girlfriend." And it was complete silence for like a few minutes.
Really?
Nothing was said. And then she was like, "Are you sure she meant girlfriend?" And I was like, "Yeah.
Pretty sure.
She meant girlfriend." And I've actually talked to my parents the last week just to kind of get their
prepping for the podcast. I love it.
Just to get their side of things. And my mom came home and cried. Not out of sadness, not out of disappointment, but she was so worried about like our family dynamic and if you would still come around, if you would be comfortable bringing girlfriends around. Like she just didn't know what would happen.
Yeah. Interesting.
She called her sister crying because she's just like, I don't know what's going to happen. We love Kait. We want her to still come around. I don't know how comfortable she'll be. Like, is she going to worry about what we'll say? What we'll do?
That's so interesting to me because that's in a large part when I started telling people, that was my concern is this going to make everybody else uncomfortable? Like that was my concern was I don't want to ask people if I can come over and bring my girlfriend because what if that makes them feel like off, you know? Like it's so interesting to me that was the concern that was I going to be okay like bringing people around when I was like, are people going to be okay with me bringing a girlfriend around? I'm like, if there's like, do I just bring a girlfriend and like we just stand there? Like, is there any like PDA? Is that gonna like gross people out or make people uncomfortable and things like that? That's so interesting.
Yeah, and she said her biggest worry was like, are we gonna miss out on someone awesome just because of this change? That was her main concern. Yeah. Because our family, our house, I grew up with the doors always open. If you don't have anywhere else to go, you come here. You're always welcome. So I was never worried about like telling my parents for that aspect, but that's what my mom was worried about is if you would feel comfortable.
Interesting. That's funny. I haven't posted tomorrow I'm posting the podcast where I came out to my family. It's interesting the things that you're saying because that was something with my family. It was always open door, like everybody's welcome and things like that until I came out because it didn't feel that way. Like with my family, it didn't feel like I could, like anytime Kenna came to the house, it was very noticeably uncomfortable for my parents. And I think maybe that's where my hesitation stemmed from, was that I saw how my parents reacted, and so I was nervous about other people reacting the same way. I think I just assumed.
Sure.
Which I think is why it took me so long to like tell people.
Totally.
Is because I was just worried about other people being like, okay, well this is weird. I don't like I didn't give people the benefit of the doubt. I assumed that people were going to be uncomfortable and hesitant to associate with me. Which, I mean, I think came from a lot of issues that I had in my brain. Like, obviously, like, I was working a lot of stuff out, but I wish I would have assumed the best of my friends, but I was terrified to tell people.
if I'm being honest, did I think that it could make things awkward? Yes. But did I give it a second thought? No. Because I know how you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it's not your intention to make anyone uncomfortable. Right. But it is who you are.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So when I got home that night, I told Austin. I was just like, so Kait brought her girlfriend tonight to the play. And all I got from him was, okay. That's it. And I sat there for a minute and I'm like, are you kidding me? That's all you're going to say?
That's all you've got?
And he was like, well, my feelings don't change. Nothing about Kait has changed. So Kate's still awesome.
It's interesting too, because Austin doesn't have Austin got baptized. I remember going to lessons with the sister missionaries when I came home from my mission, going to his lessons where they were teaching him, and then he got baptized. Into the church. He only got
baptized a couple weeks, I think, before
you got home. Yeah.
So he doesn't have the same background
at all
growing up as us.
Very different.
Very different.
Very, very different. We could go into depth, but we don't want to expose. We don't want to expose Austin.
Right. But... So for Austin, it was nothing.
Yeah.
It was Kait's still Kait. I still love Kait. Kait's still awesome. I was just disappointed at his reaction. I was expecting him to say
something else.
Oh, that's good for Kait, you know? Great.
He was probably like, yeah, that's not a surprise. That's probably what he was. If anybody knew, it was probably Austin. Let's be real. He probably heard that and was like, well, duh. Like,
I mean, definitely. I don't know that he would ever. I don't think he ever said anything about it, but
yeah,
he wasn't probably surprised either.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And then my mom got home and told my dad. And my dad... there's a lot to my dad. Because you guys have a really good bond.
Right.
So when my mom initially told my dad, he didn't say anything, I don't think at all. He never jumps to emotions. He never says things before he thinks it through, because... his processing system is a lot different than a lot of people.
Yeah. He really thinks. He really sits with stuff before he speaks his mind on anything.
And then I remember hearing about a text that he sent you. Do you remember that text?
No, but I bet I could go back and find it.
About going for a motorcycle ride?
I don't specifically remember what he said, though.
Well, I don't really either. I was hoping you did. But I believe it was something along the lines of, like, I still love you. I'm going to be here for you. And let's go for a motorcycle ride and talk it through, because he wanted to understand where you were at. Yeah. Probably in a lot of ways. Emotionally, with other, like, relationships, things like that. I think he was very much wanting to be involved. He didn't want you to feel like you had to make a distanced relationship just because.
Right. We rode Nebo. We rode Mount Nebo. Nebo Loop.
That's your favorite?
It's like my favorite canyon. Mount Nebo. That's the one we rode. And there's a couple like lookout spots where we stopped and chatted about stuff. It's really good.
Yes.
Really good motorcycle ride.
My dad did say how he thought he would feel and how he actually felt are completely different.
Interesting.
Especially, I mean, with my dad grew up the same background as us. Granted, he probably had a bit of a wild teenage. I mean, I've heard stories.
Sure.
So he was a bit of a wild child for a little while. So he experienced life maybe a little more than even us.
Probably.
I would say.
Yeah.
Because he got married pretty young, younger than me. I think. Anyway. And so, but even then, having the same background and raising me the way he raised me, he did say that the way he actually felt versus how he thought he would feel about anybody coming out were totally different. And maybe it's because it was you.
Right. Interesting. How did he think he would feel?
I don't know.
Guess we'll have to have him on the podcast.
To be continued on that.
Really, though.
But he also, I mean, like I said, I've been raised that the door is always open for anybody. Anybody that needed somewhere to go, anybody that didn't feel comfortable at their own home, they were always welcome in our home. And that's how he was raised too. I mean, he got a bonus brother growing up, just like I got a bonus brother growing up. And he said that when he was in like school, he would always befriend the kids that weren't members of the church and things like that. And people would look down on him for the mere sense of befriending anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And so he was like, this is, I mean, it's kind of similar. Like, if people look down at me for still loving and accepting you, that's on them. That's not on me.
Right. Their problem.
Yes. Being in Happy Valley, I mean, you do get a lot of judgment.
It's interesting because, well, I can't say that I haven't. I can count on one hand, though, the experiences that I've had where people have been like not accepting or have said things that are like off the cuff and not very nice. But I mean, for the most part, I feel like relationships with my close friends have not changed at all.
Sure.
People who are more like acquaintances, though.
Not so much acquaintances anymore.
Yeah. Well, just I mean, if my being gay makes somebody uncomfortable to the point where they don't want to like be around, then they don't have to be around.
Sure.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Because
I got all these other people that I do want to be around and that want me around, and we all get along. But I would say that, I mean, largely, I've had overwhelmingly positive experiences with other people, which is surprising to me because that's not what you expect, I think, in Utah. And I know a lot of people who have not had good experiences coming out in Utah.
Which would make you even more nervous to come out.
Yeah.
Because it's so unexpected how people will react, how they'll feel towards you afterwards. I mean, even as silly as former like boyfriends feeling like maybe you deceived them.
I lied to them.
And that's silly, but
thinking of one person in particular.
The same one I'm thinking
Probably. Fuzzy's a peach.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
I did date men, for the record, just in case anybody was curious. I have dated men.
For a while.
I tried really hard. And it's not that, that's the thing too, is like, it's not that I don't feel like those relationships were like genuine. I feel like they were.
I feel like they were too.
I just feel like when I dated Kenna, it was a totally different dynamic, a totally different kind of connection. And I was like, I've never felt this way when I've dated a man, ever. And I think some people are like, well, he probably just wasn't the right guy. I'm like, well, maybe, but it's just not the same. And I don't know how to explain that to people, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. My dad also said, I mean, along those same lines of just like loving people, not changing dynamics, relationships changing. He said last night, he said, how can you love the inner depths of somebody and not completely accept who they are? So I think maybe when he said he didn't expect to feel the way he did, he thought it would be different. Maybe that's what it was, is he didn't realize that love conquers anything else.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was also very worried that you would stop coming around. He was worried that you would fear our judgment or anything.
Interesting.
And I don't feel like that's been the case.
No, not at all.
I mean, we joke about you being gay.
All the time. All the time. I love a good gay joke. So, yeah. I would say that if there's like one group of people where I feel like I can be totally myself, it's with you guys.
That's good.
Yeah.
To hear. That makes me feel good.
I mean, it's I'm getting there with my family, like with my parents specifically, but like since coming out, the fact that I'm always invited over, that we're filming this podcast in your house, your parents' house.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like since coming out, my ability to just keep going with life and feel like nothing has changed has been like with you guys.
I'm glad.
Which has been awesome.
We try to be that way.
You do a great job. If any gays out there need a good like adopted family, I got your people. They're in Payson, Utah.
Austin and I are in Santa Quinn.
Santa Quinn.
So I mean, my parents are great too.
But if you need people, I've got them.
Oh, I think one of the main things. So I talked to my family last night. Jess and JC were there, and they made a few comments. One of the main things Jess pointed out is he said that he was impressed that you, as a strong, very strong, strong-willed person, you're independent, recognized you needed help and were willing to get help from a therapist. Because you talk about therapy a lot.
Oh, yeah.
He said that not making... How did he word it? You weren't worried that it would make you seem weak. You recognized that it would really ultimately help you through the transition of coming out.
Yeah.
He said that's something that has completely impressed him.
That's interesting that he says that, because that was a difficult thing to, because I mean, I grew up with like, well, if you got a problem, just like deal with it, like brush it off, like it's fine, like, and so the idea of going to tell somebody all of my problems and like the fact that I couldn't handle it by myself, that was hard. The letting go of the pride part and being like, oh, I can deal with this on my own. Like, I could not.
But previous work situations have made you also realize
That's
too
true.
that therapy really
helps.
Yeah.
Big push for if you need somebody to talk to, get a therapist. For anything. Not even just for coming out.
I'm
but
pro
like,
therapy.
Yeah.
Anything you feel like you need, even if you don't need it, maybe you go and it changes your life forever.
Yeah. I think there's just such a stigma around mental health that like you shouldn't burden other people with your problems, which is just not,
it's not
that's
a
just
burden.
not a good outlook to have, right?
Right.
We're supposed to help each other. Like, that's what we do as human beings. We're supposed to help each other out. And so if you going to therapy means that you're going to benefit because you're communicating with this other person who's totally objective.
Totally
right?
objective.
They're not involved. They don't know. They just see from whatever information you give them, and then they offer a whole different perspective, and you learn and you figure things out, and that's a good thing.
Don't push things on you.
Oh, yeah.
They're there to be kind of a sounding board, to give you ideas, and you run with what you feel like fits your personality, fits your lifestyle, all of those things.
Absolutely.
And
little plug for mental health.
Yes.
Yeah. Take care of your mental health.
It is very important. And then you talk a lot about God and your relationship with God.
Yes.
And JC, which is Jess's wife, she just said when she first found out you were gay, she said, I know that Kait has a strong relationship with God, with Jesus Christ. And when people come out, a lot of times they lose a part of themselves. They lose their relationship with God. And so she was worried for a minute, but quickly she realized that that relationship was still going to be important to you.
Yeah.
And
she's like always popping on the Sun Gay schools. Like but it's you and JC all the time that are on that are in there.
Juice box. I don't know her for sure thing, but I love JC.
Yeah, she's great. They hadn't gotten married yet. When were they still dating when
they actually were married?
They were married when,
because they got married in 2018 and you came out in 2019.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And a side note, Kait, actually, another background information, I got Kait into videography. This
is true.
She did my wedding first. I was her guinea pig. Yay.
Yep, little experiment there.
And now she's our family photographer, usually.
Mm-hmm. Little photo shoots,
So
videos.
That's another way that she's involved with our family, is she comes to to do all the
just
pictures.
So fun.
We love it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Anyway, JC said, sorry, Kait, you're ours forever. That's what she said last night. And Jess and I said, well, we own you. I said, no, that came out wrong. Jess says, we claim you. We lay our claim to Kait. Oh she's our family. Things would be different.
Yeah.
If you weren't around.
It's interesting to hear that side of things. Because, like, I didn't know what to expect. I never knew what to expect with people for a long time. And for a long time, I really cared about what the reaction was going to be. Mm-hmm. I don't know at what point. I still haven't figured out at what point that changed, where I stopped being afraid to tell people. It wasn't until after things ended with Kenna, though. I think it was after therapy where I finally decided, like, this is just who I am, and you can be on board with it or not. But before all of that went down, there was just this gripping fear of what it was going to mean for people, what it was going to mean for my friendships, for my relationships. So it's interesting to hear your side.
I was probably a little bit nervous at first what it would do to our friendship. Mm-hmm. I mean, as a female, having a gay best friend, it's a little weird. I'll be honest. But again, I didn't, because I knew you so well and you were my best friend and Austin's best friend, like, nothing in our minds, nothing changed.
Yeah.
In fact, we invited you over with Kenna for dinner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You've come over with a couple people.
Yeah.
But we invited you because we wanted you to know that we will accept whoever you're with.
Yeah. Which means so much. Like, that really does. I don't think people realize that. Like, Cooper and Kadee too.
Yes, they've been so
Cooper,
good
my
too.
older brother. Yeah, they were the same way. Like, when I came out, they just picked up right where things had left off, and it was, mm-hmm. I mean, because they lived, when I was in Provo, when Kenna and I were at that house in Provo, they lived around the corner.
Oh.
And so, I mean, they were so good about inviting us over for a game night, or can we bring you some dinner, or like, just, like, nothing had changed. So they were another couple that, I mean, really, it was just like, they were like, yeah, okay. And it'd be interesting to have a conversation with them too, because, I mean, I lived with them for a little while also.
Yeah.
But I would be curious to hear how they took that, you know?
Maybe the conversations that they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To try to maybe even process it, because it does take time to process it.
Absolutely.
Even if you're accepting of it, it still takes time to come to terms.
Yeah.
Just because it's a change.
Right.
It's not a bad change. It's just a change.
It's just different.
Yeah. You spent your first Thanksgiving with us after you came out too.
Yep. That's true. I don't remember.
I think your family was out of town.
They were out of town. That's right. Man. So many experiences.
Lots to think about.
Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah. Well. Any last words?
I love my baby gay.
Baby gay.
Sporting the merch.
That's my favorite thing. Baby gay. Every time I walk in the house, baby gay.
You have a plethora of nicknames.
That's true.
Baby gay, Kait Daddy.
That's right.
In fact, my ringtone for you is still the Cat Daddy song.
Cat Daddy. That's me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yes.
And for being on the podcast. We'll have to have more conversations because I'm curious. We've talked a little bit about, like, church gospel stuff.
Yeah.
You and I, but I would love to have more conversations about that.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. We'll have to plan a day.
I want to be a reoccurring guest.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have you back.
Every few months.
Oh, yeah. Why not?
Something like that.
Yeah. I like it. I never know how to end these podcasts, honestly. Thanks for listening, everybody. And I hope you find a Kadee and Austin and family for yourselves. I mean, they're here for you if you need them, but also they're also mine. So I'm not telling you to find your own. It's a little difficult. Long distance family relationships essentially would be what that is. But find yourselves a Kadee and an Austin and a Mr. Beard and a Jess and a JC and a Kim. And if
find
you
a
can't,
support system.
yeah, find a group. There's people. That's the thing is like, you might don't jump to conclusions about how people are going to react to your coming out. I think give people who have been there for you the benefit of the doubt. Unless they have said some really like incredibly homophobic things. That's the other thing too, is like I never, like you said, your family has always been like open door, and that was always the feeling that I got from everybody was like everybody's accepted here. Many conversations that were had with your family about like, especially like church conversations, talking about people who weren't in the church and like how do we make people feel included and welcome and things like that. So like I feel like I knew that you guys weren't gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's gay. Like, unless you've heard people say really homophobic things, give people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if anything, you might not see him again, but you also could find a really, really solid support system. So,
and really, it's probably relieving to be able to tell people in your life that you are gay. So don't always keep the weight in. I mean, or the weight on your shoulders. If you feel like you've got people that will have your back, I mean, obviously timing is different for everybody. Yeah. I'm not telling you just to come out if you're not ready.
Right.
But I'm glad you were willing. I'm glad you felt ready.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that we were the people in your life that were as accepting as we were, you know, the people there that maybe you needed.
Very solid, very consistent. You guys were always very consistent. It really was. It really was like nothing changed, which was so nice.
I'm glad.
Find yourself some good people. Thanks for listening to Education 101. Stay tuned for the next episode where we're going to talk about something maybe a little bizarre, maybe something normal. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Sounds intriguing.
Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I just have to decide the night before. I'm like, what are we going to talk about on the podcast?
I'll be there.
It's time to get into like, I think it's time to get into like the TikTok side of gay whatever. Because that was big. Yeah, that was really big for me. Like discovering TikTok and like gay stuff and terms. And
was I the first person you told about your gay TikTok?
I think probably. Ooh. Yeah, gay TikTok.
And then I told the whole family.
Yeah, right. Well, that's fine. It's fine, because here we are. You know, we're doing a podcast because of gay TikTok, so thanks, TikTok.
TikTok.
Anyway, we'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.